The moment she said it, I thought she'd lost her mind. My answer was instant, sharp, final, no. But my sister had this uncanny gift for twisting my refusals into reluctant yeses, and now she was at it again, Mom looming beside her like a quiet but immovable judge. For as long as I could remember, Mom had paraded Lauren through beauty pageants, turning winning into a family law. It was never about Lauren's choice, the cost, or the toll it took on all of us, only the thrill of crushing the competition and walking away with the crown. For Lauren, the whole thing had long since turned into a mechanical routine. But lately, the endless rehearsals, fittings, and rehearsed smiles had started to choke her social life, and she was itching for an escape. So, on a whim, or maybe a stroke of mischief, she'd put my name down for the next local beauty contest. She thought it would be a harmless bit of fun, nothing serious, except I was accepted. Lauren had always known my secret. Ever since we were kids, I'd raided her wardrobe, slipping into her glittering pageant gowns and practicing poses in front of the mirror. Later, in high school, we'd even gone out together as sisters on late-night drives. Those moments had revealed something to me I hadn't been ready to say aloud. I enjoyed dressing as a girl more than a little, and if circumstances allowed, I might never stop. There was even that one unforgettable day in high school when I dressed in Lauren's clothes, purely to tease her about how long she took to get ready. It was supposed to be a private joke at home, but time slipped away, and I found myself without a second to change before school. Mom thought it was hilarious, Lauren was in hysterics, and I half-terrified walked into class wearing one of her short skirts and a snug sweater. The boys mostly laughed it off, recognizing a prank when they saw one, but the girls were another matter. I learned later that my resemblance to Lauren had unsettled them, made them question themselves in ways they didn't appreciate. Through it all, Lauren kept my secret. She was stunning, though she never quite believed it. Even after winning her last big competition, doubts gnawed at her. But Mom had other plans, bigger ones. Lauren's win meant automatic entry into the state pageant, the next step toward regionals and, possibly, nationals. The trouble was, the higher the stakes, the more the demands. The state contest included a talent portion, and Lauren, well, she couldn't twirl a baton to save her life, couldn't sing despite years of lessons, and had absolutely no desire to try. That mismatch led to explosive arguments with Mom ugly ones that sometimes felt like they could turn dangerous. But Mom always seemed to get her way. Lauren's real skill was in sewing, a talent as useless to Mom's pageant ambitions as it was invaluable elsewhere. And then there was me, accomplished pianist, winner of multiple awards, and, thanks to my sister's memories, no stranger to wearing a gown. That combination was why she was now hounding me to take her place. Her plan? I'd step into her spot, glide across the stage in a glittering gown, heels clicking, hair perfectly styled, and then sit down at a concert grand to play with nails, just long enough to make every key a hazard. As much as I might have liked the idea of being a girl, or at least dressing as one, the thought of actually doing it in front of a live audience, in a competition, was something else entirely. When Lauren started resisting Mom's demands, Mom doubled down, turning their disagreement into a standoff, my sister's desperate wish to quit versus my mother's unyielding obsession to keep her in the game. I had to admit, I was proud of Lauren for standing her ground with Mom. She'd been stuck in those pageants for so long, and I knew just how much she hated them. I backed her up every time the fights broke out loudly, openly. But somewhere in the middle of one of those standoffs, the lines shifted, and before I even noticed, Lauren and Mom had joined forces against me. It wasn't exactly a mystery why. Mom had been there the day I walked into school in one of Lauren's outfits, so she knew I could pass at least well enough to make it convincing. Lauren knew it too. And now they were both convinced I could take her place. Could I? Probably. Did I want to? Not even close. Like Lauren, I hated beauty contests, so I ignored the whole thing, figuring if I didn't feed the fire, it would burn out. 3 days later, I was back in the hot seat facing my sister on one side, my mother on the other. They pressed me harder this time, their voices circling like vultures over fresh roadkill. The real kicker? Lauren and I were almost identical in build, both 5'7", both green-eyed, our hair nearly the same shade and length. She was a lean 110 pounds to my 125, but in a gown, that difference would vanish. My name's Evan, though everyone calls me Keys because of my piano playing. Both of them actually begged to try on the emerald gown Lauren was supposed to wear. I held my ground. I knew how much I enjoyed the feel of her clothes when I'd worn them before, but I wasn't about to hand them more ammunition. I walked away, certain they'd try again, and they did over dinner. After almost an hour of relentless nagging, I finally caved. But I made my terms clear. I'd try the dress only. No wigs, no shoes, no makeup. Lauren grinned and said she wanted to be there just to help. I shut that down fast. For once, Mom agreed, though her eyes had that dangerous glint when she added, "We'll try it in the morning, and you'll wear whatever it takes to get it on." I knew exactly what that meant. The next morning, after breakfast, Mom wasted no time. She pulled me into Lauren's room, shut the door, and told me to strip not just to my briefs, but completely. Her explanation? I had to get the feel of the dress, which apparently meant starting with panties and a bra. I put them on without comment, then let her slip the gown over my head. It wouldn't zip. I was halfway to the bathroom to change back when Mom caught my arm, her other hand holding a lacy, bone-stiff corset. I refused outright, but Mom had that look sharp, unyielding. I ended up standing there while she hooked me in, then laced it so tight I thought my ribs might cave in. When the dress went over my head this time, it zipped like it had been made for me. I turned toward the mirror, and for a moment, I didn't see myself at all. The emerald satin shimmered, catching the light with every movement. The fitted waist gave me a curve I didn't know I had, the skirt flowing around my legs. The neckline was low enough to hint without revealing. Then Mom brushed my hair back, and suddenly I was looking at Lauren in a slightly different body. The sight was unnerving. Dressing like a girl was one thing, I'd done it before, but a beauty pageant? That was another beast entirely. Those contests were packed with competitors who'd claw their way to the top, literally, if they had to. Rumor had it a guy had once made it to the finals, but I wasn't looking to become part of that legend. Mom helped me out of the gown and the corset, and I pulled my jeans and t-shirt back on. Before they could launch another round of persuasion, I headed for my car and drove straight to Riverside Mall. I needed space, noise, people, anything but that image in the mirror. And yet, as I wandered past storefronts, that reflection followed me. No matter how I tried to push it out of my head, it stayed glimmering satin, cinched waist, my hair falling just right. And then I started noticing every display I passed. Mannequins in silk lingerie, racks of shoes, rows of dresses in colors that seemed to call to me. It felt like I'd walked straight into a trap one I hadn't even seen until it snapped shut around me. Everything I'd worked so hard to keep buried came flooding back, drowning me in feelings I'd been avoiding for years. My stroll through the Riverside Mall had done nothing to calm me. If anything, it had thrown gasoline on the fire. That woman inside me, the one I'd kept locked away, was stirring again, restless, whispering. By the time I got home, I was strung so tight I could hardly breathe. I shut myself in my room, trying to find some quiet, but all I could think about was how effortlessly Mom had transformed me. She'd made me look more convincing than Lauren and I had ever managed on our own, and that was saying something. It was unsettling, dangerous even, how real it had felt. But stepping in for Lauren, even for just the talent portion? Impossible. The logistics alone would be a nightmare. And besides, it would be cheating. Lauren would have to figure something out herself, learn a new talent, fake one, anything. She decided she'd try to sing, dusting off her old lessons and starting again. Meanwhile, She and Mom buried themselves in designing her pageant costumes. I kept a low profile, and for a while, they never mentioned me taking her place again. Mom paid the steep entry fees. Lauren practiced as best she could, though she still couldn't carry a tune if it came with a handle, and life settled into a tense but bearable rhythm. With nearly a year until the contest, we all convinced ourselves she had time to scrape together enough skill to get by. Our family was small. Mom and Dad had divorced years ago, and I hadn't seen Dad in nearly a decade. Lauren and I were late babies, born when our parents were older. Our much older sister, a trauma doctor, was nearly 15 years ahead of us, which left Mom with plenty of time to focus on us and to become set in her ways in ways that could drive us both crazy. Still, we managed. 2 months into Lauren's singing lessons, everything shattered. Some lunatic stormed into the building where her lessons were held, waving a gun, firing wildly. He wasn't after the music school at all. His rage was aimed at a tech company next door. He killed 7 people in their office, but 3 bullets tore through the wall into the music rooms. One of them, mangled from hitting the plaster, ripped through Lauren's head. She never even had a chance to react 1 second alive. The next, just a figure standing without life. The shooter was found moments later, sitting at his desk, surrounded by an arsenal of guns, explosives, and detonators. A single shot to his own head had ended it. The aftermath was a blur. Mom and I did what we could to survive it. But the house felt hollow without Lauren's constant presence. For all our bickering, we'd been close. I missed her more than I could put into words. Mom? Well, Mom was Mom, devastated, yes, but too stubborn to collapse completely. About a month later, she appeared in my doorway. "I know you miss Lauren, honey," she said softly. "And I know you'd do anything to bring her back. But we can't change what's happened. What we can do is bring back her memory if you're willing." My stomach tightened. Bring back her memory how? "That fee I send in for her," she continued. "It's non-refundable," I called. "They were very sorry, but rules are rules, so here's my thought." "What thought?" I asked, already uneasy. "We all know you can fit into her clothes with barely any effort," she said. "I wondered if you'd fill in for her. I know she'd be thrilled if you did it for her." "Moom," I groaned. "You realize this isn't just a talent contest?" "There's a swimsuit portion. There is no way I'm doing that." "I think there is," she countered smoothly, "if you're willing to try. But if you don't want to honor her memory by doing this for her, we'll just lose the money. And that will be the end of it." That was Mom's gift, laying down a guilt trip so heavy you could barely stand under it. And she'd just dropped a boulder on me. If I said no, the money was gone, the costumes wasted, and I'd have to live with her disappointment forever. If I said yes, I'd be stepping into a world where I didn't belong, risking humiliation, exposure, maybe even legal trouble if someone decided I'd broken the rules. And there I was, stuck between 2 doors. Both of them bad. It was the very definition of a no-win situation, and I was right in the dead center of it. I knew my mother too well. If I said no, she wouldn't drop it. She'd just keep circling back, adding guilt like fresh coats of paint until the walls closed in completely. Relentless was the only word that fit. She'd clearly thought this through before even approaching me, and the fact that she still saw me in a bikini was enough to make my stomach twist. I could already picture it me, standing under the bright stage lights, the crowd erupting into laughter that would echo in my head for years. When Mom left my room, I sat there, trying to conjure up some airtight excuse, some escape route that didn't involve crushing her completely. But I found nothing. And then, unbidden, a memory surfaced the day I'd gone to school dressed as a girl. I remembered the reactions, not just giggles, but a strange, almost reverent quiet from the guys, and that sharp, unsettled look from the girls. And I couldn't shake the image of myself in that green gown I'd tried on not so long ago, the way it had made me feel, the way it had stirred something deep and stubborn inside me. If it were only a matter of gliding out in the gown, playing the piano, smiling just enough, maybe I could pull it off. But the swimsuit portion, that was another beast. Bikinis had replaced the modest one-pieces of the past, leaving nowhere to hide anything. And while I'd insisted I wasn't all that into wearing women's clothes, I knew the truth that I liked it, maybe more than I'd ever wanted to admit. That was the real trap. If I agreed, Mom would know. Maybe everyone would. Still, the guilt was sitting heavy on me, and I could feel her words working under my skin. Eventually, I caved not fully, but enough to test the waters. I left my room, passed Lauren's door, and the faint scent of her perfume drifted out to meet me. It stopped me cold. For a moment, I almost expected her to step out, grinning. Her bed was neatly made, her closet still stuffed with clothes, her dolls arranged in place, her posters lining the walls. Even her locket still rested on the nightstand. It hit like a punch to the ribs, and I had to turn away. I found Mom downstairs. "Okay, Mom," I said. "I'll do it, but—" "I knew you wouldn't let us down," she interrupted, eyes already shining. "Lauren would be so—" "Mom!" I cut her off. She stopped and looked at me. "I'll try, just to see if it's even possible. If it's not, I'm out, and I don't want to hear another word about it. Deal?" She didn't like it, but she agreed. And in that moment, I forgot one important thing: Mom was sneaky. That little truth would come back to haunt me soon enough. She told me we'd start in the morning, and I thought that meant maybe trying on the gown again. I was wrong. While I was out later that day, she must have gone shopping. I didn't find out until the next morning. Right after breakfast, she led me to Lauren's room and said I should get used to it because I'd be moving in. She wanted me to feel like the girl I was supposed to become. Before I could process that, she handed me a bottle, pointed to the bathroom, and told me to follow the directions exactly, shave close, wash my hair, and that she'd be back in 45 minutes. One glance at the label told me everything. With a sigh, I went into the bathroom and did as I was told. When I stepped out again, I was hairless from the eyes down. My skin already felt smooth, but the lotion she handed me made it softer still, like silk under my own fingertips. Wrapped in a towel, I watched her walk back in without a word. And then, as casually as if she were handing me a pair of socks, she tossed me a pair of panties. They covered me, and somehow, at the same time, made the problem far worse. I turned away for a moment, making a few discreet adjustments to avoid any embarrassment, then went along with Mom's plan. First came the bra, a snug 36A, followed by a waist nipper, camisole, pantyhose, a soft blouse, and finally the red and white plaid skirt. The pantyhose gave my legs a sleek, elongated look, lending them a shape I never realized they had, and to my surprise, they looked good. The bra, one of Lauren's old push-up styles, seemed to scoop and gather what little I had, filling the cups until I almost believed it was real. Mom handed me a pair of new short heels, and then we moved to the vanity. She hovered, clearly itching to take over, but I waved her off and reached for the foundation myself. She let me apply it in silence, but when I picked up the eyeshadow, she stopped me and passed me the powder instead. She draped a protective sheet over my outfit and instructed me to powder everywhere I'd used foundation. When I brushed it away, my reflection startled me. My skin had that smooth, flawless finish you usually only saw in fashion magazines. Without even realizing it, I smiled at the mirror. Eyeshadow came next, then mascara, eyeliner, a touch of blusher, and lipstick to finish. Sitting there, I already knew I didn't look like myself anymore. But I didn't look exactly like Lauren either. The resemblance was more subtle, like sisters with the same bone structure, but different personalities in their features. Mom moved on to my hair, wielding a brush, blow dryer, and curling iron until she coaxed it into soft, wavy layers with short bangs swept to one side. When she stepped back, I stood and faced the full-length mirror. What looked back at me was something I'd never quite dared to imagine. Long, shapely legs, a narrow waist beneath the gentle swell of breasts, and my soft auburn hair framing a pixie-like face I'd always suspected was in there, waiting. I had never looked this good as a girl. I didn't even have words. After a few quiet moments, Mom took my hand and led me to the kitchen, where her nail kit was waiting. I sat silently as she filed, cleaned, and painted my nails a delicate pink, sealing them with a glossy top coat. When she finished, the effect was complete. Anyone looking at me now would see nothing but a young woman, poised and ready, as long as I didn't have to walk out in a swimsuit. And that's when it hit me. "Mom," I said slowly, "how can I even do this? Everyone knows Lauren passed away, it was all over the news. The runner-up would take her place, not me. I'm not even eligible." She smiled like she'd been waiting for the question. "True, you're not eligible for the contest Lauren was entered in, but you are eligible for the one in 2 months. When you win that, you'll qualify for the same competition Lauren was supposed to be in. The entry fee I paid won't be wasted, and you'll get to compete in both." There it was, her real plan. She'd left out the small detail that I'd have to win a preliminary competition just to get to Lauren's level. She wasn't hoping I'd win, she was counting on it. By all logic, I should have refused right there, told her I was out. I almost did. The words were right there on my tongue. But some quiet, insistent part of me told me to stay silent. And just like that, I knew I wasn't steering my own life anymore. I told myself that liking the clothes didn't mean anything, but I was lying. Deep down, I knew exactly what it meant. Still, the pageant world was brutal. I'd seen it up close with Lauren, the mothers as fierce as the daughters, all of them obsessed with winning, capable of smiling to your face while they plotted your downfall. If even one of them caught a whisper of what I really was, I'd be lucky if all they did was ruin my reputation. Mom wasn't worried, but she wasn't the one who'd have to pull it off. I'd have to learn to be as graceful, soft-spoken, and effortlessly feminine as any of those girls, maybe more so just to blend in, let alone win. The task felt impossible. And yet, when I caught my reflection in the hall mirror on the way out, I couldn't deny it. There, in the glass, was proof I might actually have a shot. Mom didn't offer a single explanation, just pressed a purse into my hands and told me we were going. When I asked where, all she said was, "You need a little help, and now's the time to get it." I had a suspicion, one that hardened into certainty when we pulled up in front of my older sister Kara's office. I knew Mom well enough to sense the setup. Kara greeted us with that dazzling smile of hers, still as striking as ever, despite being married with 2 kids and a demanding job. "Mom says you're going to try for the title Lauren was after," Kara said, almost cheerfully. "That's wonderful. I'm sure she'd have loved the idea of you doing this for her." "Kara," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, "what am I doing here?" "I'm not sick. All I'm doing is—" "Helping you look like a girl, silly," she cut in. "Just some small implants and a bit of adjustment. Presto, you'll look like a girl, at least for a while. It's all reversible. Well, except for—" "What?" My voice shot up. "What's not reversible? You're not going to cut—" "No, of course not. The only thing that won't reverse is the laser removal of your body and facial hair. But that's just maintenance you'll never miss." She said it so matter-of-factly that I didn't even know how to push back. In her mind, this was all just practical problem-solving. And somehow, without me agreeing outright, I found myself following her without Mom this time, into another office, this one belonging to a plastic surgeon she knew personally. The consult blurred by, in a haze of sterile white walls and professional smiles. He had me undress, lie back on a table, and told me I'd be staying 1 or 2 nights. A form was placed in front of me. I signed it. I remember the sting of the needle in my arm and thinking right before the darkness closed in, "What the hell am I doing?" But there was no time to answer myself. I'd had so many chances to refuse, to walk away, to say no, but I didn't. Whether it was pressure, curiosity, Or some hidden impulse, I signed. When I woke, my whole body ached. I was wrapped from armpits to hips in tight bandages, every inch of my skin sore. I tried to sit up, couldn't, then managed it later with a nurse's help and immediately felt the weight on my chest. Even bound, there was no mistaking the new shape. Within a few days, I was back home, still swaddled like a mummy. My face swelling went down after a week, though my eyes were still darkly bruised. My nose was a touch smaller, my cheekbones subtly higher. But the biggest shock wasn't my face, it was between my legs. My equipment was gone, replaced by what looked and, from a glance, moved like a normal vagina. On Saturday, Kara came over to remove the bandages. Seeing my chest for the first time was surreal, full, rounded breasts, high and firm, easily a B cup. The nipples stood out against slightly larger aureoles, the skin impossibly smooth. When I let my robe fall, I saw my waist pulled in, my hips a shade wider. It was enough to make my own brain question what it was seeing. Kara just smiled, almost proud, and helped me dress. The panties fit perfectly, snug in a way they never could before. The bra wasn't just a prop, now it fit because it had something to hold. I slipped into a blouse, skirt, and flats, and sat at the vanity to brush out my mess of hair. Kara stepped in, smoothed it into place, and added a simple hairband. No makeup beyond a touch of lipstick, my face didn't need more. When we stepped out of the room together, Mom was waiting. My walk felt different hips swaying without conscious effort, and every step made me aware of the soft bounce in my bra. This wasn't pretending anymore. This was something else entirely. It was such a strange, intoxicating feeling standing there in front of Mom, realizing that I couldn't hide from myself anymore. All those years of envy toward Lauren came flooding back. Her femininity had always been magnetic, powerful, yet soft, a grace I could never put into words. I had wanted that for myself for as long as I could remember, though I buried it under layers of stubborn male pride. The day I went to school dressed as a girl had cracked that shell, but I'd patched it back together, denying what I truly wanted. This wasn't about a beauty pageant, or honoring Lauren's memory, or even sparing Mom the wasted entry fee. It was about me, about becoming the woman I'd once glimpsed in the mirror years ago, and dreamed of ever since. Every change I now saw: smaller nose, higher cheekbones, fuller hips, rounder backside, soft curves on my chest, only drove home the truth. I had been given what I'd secretly wanted for so long. I was, in that moment, the luckiest woman in the world. And yet, a part of me still tried to cling to denial, to wrap myself in that old masculine armor and claim this was all for my sister. But I couldn't. Not when the reality of my reflection was right there, breathing with me. Mom studied me in silence while Kara stood close, her presence steadying me. For a moment, none of us spoke. Then I let go of the pretense, the resistance, the weight I'd been dragging for years, and allowed myself to be a girl. The change was instant, like a locked door swinging open. Even my posture, my gestures felt different. We went to the kitchen, Mom and Kara following. We ate breakfast quietly, the three of us adjusting to the fact that I was no longer the same person. When Kara reminded me that all of it could be reversed, I nearly told her the truth that I didn't want to go back. Not now. After she left, I went to my room, closed the door, and undressed. I traced my hands over my breasts, soft, tender, undeniably mine. My fingers skimmed over my hips, my smooth stomach, and finally, the new folds between my legs. It was all still a little sore, still healing, but it was real. I stepped into the shower, letting the hot water roll over every inch of this unfamiliar yet familiar body, and came out feeling lighter than air. Dressing was deliberate, almost ceremonial. Panties first, then I sat at the vanity in just those, working patiently with my makeup, covering the fading bruises around my eyes. Pantyhose, bra. Then I reached into the closet and pulled out one of Lauren's outfits. I'd always admired a white and brown checked pleated skirt with a tan pullover. Penny loafers were the only match I had, so on they went. I coaxed my hair into a soft, flippy pageboy style with bangs, dabbed on pale red lipstick, perfume, and clipped-in earrings. In the back of the closet, I found a brown purse, and inside, Lauren's wallet. Seeing her ID hit me with a wave of emotion, but I slid my own things in with my lipstick, closed the purse, and headed for the kitchen. Mom took one look and burst into tears. I knew why, because I was standing there, alive, in a way that made her see Lauren all over again. I kissed her, held her hand, hugged her tight, then stepped out the door. I needed my own makeup, my own everything. First stop was the salon Mom and Lauren had always used. I let the stylist do whatever she thought would suit me, hair and nails both. Then I drove to Riverside Mall and walked into one of those bright, glassy makeup stores. By the time they finished, I wasn't just polished, I felt like a whole new person. I bought fresh panties, a few bras with better cuts, and a little extra shaping, then drifted into the swimwear section of the department store. And there, in front of me, was the wall of bikinis. I needed to know if I could actually wear a bikini, not just pull it on and pass, but wear it without feeling exposed, without that awkward self-consciousness, and maybe even feel good, feel sexy in it. I tried on several, each one a test, until I found the one. Bright red, the kind of color that makes pale skin glow, and cut so small it could have been mistaken for a child's headband. It barely covered anything, but it fit, and when I caught my reflection, I didn't cringe. So I bought it. Driving home, I dreaded Mom's reaction. My hair was no longer the auburn she knew, but a soft, warm blonde with waves framing my face. My nails, once short and unremarkable, were now a little longer, shaped into rounded tips and painted a deep plum. My makeup wasn't overdone, just enough to catch the light. The scared boy was gone. The woman walking into that house was confident, composed, and unapologetic. I found Mom in the family room and stopped in front of her. She looked me up and down, her smile blooming slow. "You're simply beautiful, Evan. Turn around and let me see." I spun slowly, then faced her again. "From now on, you'll have to call me Anna, Mom. Evan doesn't seem to fit anymore, does it?" "Anna?" she repeated, tasting the name. "Such a pretty name. It suits you." The air between us thickened. I knew I had to tell her how I felt, why I'd gone along with all this, and I had to be honest about the one thing I'd been avoiding. "Mom, I don't want to be in a beauty contest, but I bought the bikini because, well, if you really want me to, I'll do it." She didn't even flinch. "You've always wanted to be a girl," she said softly, "and now that you are, you love it. Right?" I nodded, but added, "I still think beauty contests are just glorified peep shows." I braced for her to snap back. Instead, she said, "I knew that, Anna. That's why Kara and I gave you so many chances to back out. Losing the money would have been hard, but if you truly didn't want this, you could have said no. You didn't. Kara made the arrangements, paid for them, and here you are. We both knew, at least suspected, that you liked dressing as a girl. We just gave you the opportunity. If this is how you want to live your life, I won't stop you. But you're beautiful, and I hope you'll reconsider competing." "I'll think about it," I said, "but I'm not keen on it." She let it drop, though we both knew this was only the beginning of the adjustments we'd have to make. Just days earlier, I'd been a man. Now I wasn't. I'd crossed into something I'd only ever fantasized about, and now I had to live it. The days that followed were a slow settling into my new reality. I learned how to navigate life with a body that moved differently, a body with breasts that altered the way I reached, leaned, even sat. I had to remember that I could no longer simply stand for relief. And I started removing pieces of Lauren from my space, not her memory, but her things. Some jewelry, a few dresses that cut too close. I set them aside for Mom. 2 weeks in, I'd tried on every outfit, keeping what fit me or felt right. I'd also worn the bikini 3 times in front of the mirror. Each time, I noticed something new: an angle, a line, a curve that made me believe I actually looked good in it. And that belief sparked something else. Maybe competing would help all of us move forward after Lauren's death. When I told Mom I'd do it, she shifted instantly into drill sergeant mode. Measurements, shopping trips, gown fittings, my gowns, not Lauren's. Then came the training. 5 hours a day on posture, hand placement, how to stand tall with my shoulders back, to let my chest lead without looking cheap, to smile without looking vacant, to move like I'd always been this way. On top of that, my piano practice. The days became a cycle of bubble baths, body lotion, walking drills, and music rehearsals. By the time the competition drew close, I was calm, ready. I knew my music by heart. My gowns fit like they'd grown on me. My skin was soft and flawless. Anna was ready to walk onto that stage. On the morning of the beauty contest, I dressed in my jeans and a plain top, blending in as much as I could while Mom and I entered the hall. We hadn't made it 10 steps before a brisk-looking woman approached, clipboard in hand, informing us that every contestant had to be cleared by the pageant's doctor. Her explanation was blunt. Each girl would have to strip to prove there were no men entering under false pretenses. A rumor had been circulating about a male contestant trying to sneak in, and they were taking no chances. She glanced at me and smiled knowingly. "You won't have anything to worry about." If only she knew. I followed her to the examination area, undressed, and stood there while the doctor barely glanced in my direction. Without a single touch, I was waved through. They had no idea. Backstage was chaos: makeup stations crammed with hairspray and curling irons, gowns rustling, high-pitched chatter mixing with the clatter of heels on the floor. When my name was called, I stepped out in my gown, the lights blinding but strangely comforting. I answered the perfunctory questions, smiling just enough to seem charming. Then came the swimsuit portion. I walked out, wearing that red bikini, keeping my smile fixed as I crossed to the small promenade. I turned slowly, letting the audience take me in from every angle. The applause felt hollow. The cheapness, I felt deep in my bones. I placed second close, but not enough to move forward. Oddly, I wasn't crushed. If anything, it was a relief. At home that night, I sat in my room, weighing my options. I could go back to being a man. But the truth was, I didn't want to. I hated the pageant world, the shallow judgments, the notion that a figure somehow equated to intelligence, but as a pianist, I could live, work, and thrive as a woman without anyone questioning it. Still, using Lauren's ID gnawed at me. It tethered me to her memory in a way that made moving on impossible. Within a month, our lawyer had filed the paperwork. My new driver's license arrived, the name Anna Marie printed boldly, legally declaring me a woman. The following months were a whirlwind. I applied for scholarships, was accepted into a prestigious music school, and prepared to start that fall. Mom wasn't thrilled about me moving away, but we both knew we needed the space. I had to grow into the woman the world now saw, and I couldn't do that under her constant gaze. By the time I left, I was fully at ease in my body, even adoring my curves. But socially, I was untested. I'd never navigated a romantic situation as a woman, though I couldn't deny the thought had crossed my mind often. I had a cute body, I was pretty enough, and it felt natural to wonder. When I packed my suitcase, my hand found the bikini. Without hesitation, I tossed it in. 2 weeks into school, I met Mark. He played the oboe, and we crossed paths in several classes. We started going out, quietly at first, finding common ground in music. Mark was patient, attentive, and without even trying, he drew me deeper into my femininity. Little by little, I found myself responding to him in ways I'd never imagined, ways that felt as natural as breathing. I gave him what I could, and the closeness we shared became something I treasured. It was then I understood the full weight of my transformation. I was living the truth I'd dreamed of since high school. I was a woman whole, complete, loved. But I also knew love came with expectations, and marriage would bring needs I couldn't yet fulfill. So I called Kara. You know me, though you may not realize it. I'm a concert pianist now, with multiple albums and a place along with my husband on the A-list of the musical world. But telling you my real name? Well, that would give away the whole story, wouldn't it?